Hello, welcome. The 4 astronauts aboard the Orion spacecraft have left Earth's orbit and are heading to the moon.
10 seconds until translunar injection burns start.
Well, they have successfully completed the critical engine burn that will now propel the capsule on its journey. Orion's expected to reach the moon on Monday before travelling further into space until they loop round on their return. Our science editor, Rebecca Morell, reports.
A last look at planet Earth and a critical moment for the Artemis II astronauts.
10 seconds until translunar injection burns start.
The firing of the engine of their Orion Integrity capsule, called the translunar injection burn, or TLI. The crew leave Earth orbit and head for the moon.
Your Integrity crew is go for TLI. With this burn to the moon, we do not leave Earth, we choose it.
The crew spoke about their experience.
One of the biggest surprises was how smooth riding those solids was. We all expected a really just dynamic ride, a lot of motion. We were prepared to potentially not being able to see telemetry, maybe even not being able to, touch switches, and it was very smooth.
Your support and trust in us has enabled this, and so many people that have worked for so long to make this possible. But also, we're just getting started. We've worked really hard, and even though we were a little surprised to actually launch yesterday, we have a lot of mission left ahead of us.
At a press briefing, NASA leaders said the maneuver was flawless.
I am so excited to be able to tell you that for the first time since 1972, during Apollo 17, human beings have left Earth orbit. With Artemis II's successful 5-minute and 50-second translunar injection burn this evening, our 4 crew members are now on their trajectory toward the moon.
RS-25 engines lit. 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff.
The astronauts' journey started on a 100-meter tall mega rocket, leaving Launchpad 39B at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The crew spent their first day in space checking all of their capsule systems and even had a chance to work out.
They did an exercise test of the flywheel. That was successful. Reed reported that it was exactly like training. His arms are really tired, and he got a great cardio workout.
It will take about 4 days to fly to the moon. They'll fly around its far side, the side we never see from Earth. Then they'll head home, eventually splashing down in the Pacific Ocean. For now, they're already mesmerised by what they can see.
And we are getting just a beautiful view of the dark side of the Earth right now, lit by the moon. Phenomenal.
The Earth has already become a tiny dot in their rear-view mirror. The next stop is the moon. Rebecca Morell, BBC News, at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Next stop is the moon. You've got to love that, don't you? We're joined by our climate and science reporter, Esme Stallard. Before we talk about that next step, just talk us through what happened, because this was a really major moment for this expedition.
Exactly. This was absolutely crucial. So until now, they were sitting in Earth's orbit. We've done that quite a few times before, but not since 1972 have we made the decision to then go on to the moon. This was a crucial no-go moment earlier in the evening, in which they decided, were all systems functioning correctly? Were we in the right orientation to send us out there? This also, they said, it was an absolutely flawless burn. You heard there from our colleague Becky Morell. This is crucial because it also could set the record for the furthest now that astronauts could have ever travelled in space, which was set last in 1970. So a very historic moment, a very technical moment, but everyone seemed very happy, both on the ground at mission control and also in the spacecraft.
And it's great that they're all happy, but now the next step is they go to the far side of the moon, the bit that we don't see. Yeah, they've still got a very long way to go. They will arrive there around Monday. There will be a critical blackout moment where we won't hear from them for 41 minutes. That'll be quite nail-biting stuff. But during that, they'll be making observations of that far side of the moon. So over the next few days, they'll be working on that lunar targeting plan with the lunar science team. There's actually been a solar eclipse that's now been added to that plan, which they'll
observe as well. And then once they remake contact, they'll be sending some of those observations back. And then, of course, the final critical moment will be splashdown, which will be happening next weekend. But still quite a long way to go. Lots more for the crew to do, but so far, so good.
And just in terms of the whole point of this, obviously it's been 50 years since man landed on the moon, and this is such a big deal. But just what do they want to gain out of this particular expedition?
Yeah, this is a much bigger mission. So NASA keeps calling this a test flight. That's because the Artemis program eventually wants to land back on the moon. That'll be Artemis IV mission. But they actually want in the future to keep coming back time and time again, year after year. And that's because they think the moon has very critical resources and minerals. Now, if those remember the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, you're not actually allowed to claim the moon for your own, but it is a little bit first come, first served. So America wants to get there. China is also targeting it for 2030. And even though there's been lots of kind of talk of camaraderie, doing this for mankind, Trump posted on Truth Social at the beginning of the mission that the US was winning on Earth and in space. So it's quite clear that as much as this is about cooperation, it's also about a race to the moon.
A race to the moon. And when it comes to the astronauts themselves, I heard that they'd before actually setting off, they'd had sleepovers together in order to get used to each other, because obviously the conditions that they're living in are pretty close.
Yeah, if anyone's ever been on a caravan holiday, that's probably the best way to describe a recreation of this. It's only 5 meters by 3 meters they're in. They're very tightly packed. They have an exercise machine which sits above the toilet. We hear that Christina Koch is hanging upside down from the ceiling in trying to sleep. So they're in very close quarters, but they have a very tight schedule. Yesterday they were on 4-hour sleep schedules, and so that will help with the mental load in making sure they have very clear tasks to do throughout the mission and help them cope with some of those close quarters that they're operating in.
And they've been describing some of the extraordinary views that they've had of planet Earth.
Yeah, something that only a few people in the history of human race have actually managed to observe. They've been saying it's been absolutely spectacular. They said they actually forgot to eat because they were so busy looking out the windows. They managed to see the northern lights. So they had a little press conference, a video conference, where we got to see them speaking to us for the first time. And there'll be a series of those video conferences over the next 8 days or so where we'll hear more about the observations. But yeah, they just seem absolutely delighted with the mission so far.
So thrilled with the mission. We're expecting that next stage taking place on Monday. And when you talk about them returning, splashdown, you describe it. So what's the kind of time frame for that?
So that's quite a critical moment. So what effectively they're on is a sort of a slingshot right now. So they've kind of done the main burn. They can do a few adjustment burns, but basically they're committed now to this point. So as they swing back round, and I mentioned there the splashdown, that is a really technically and quite a dangerous position that they're in at that point. They're under a lot of pressure to come down, and what will happen is that the whole procedure is that they'll be recovered from the Pacific Ocean by NASA's specialist team. The Navy will be there as well, so that will be obviously a very critical step. It's not without risks. I think even though everyone seems all smiles at the moment, it is worth pointing out obviously there is the risk of death with this. This is a very high risk mission, but they won't be looking ahead to that. They'll be just taking the next few hours, collecting all the data they can and just learning as they go.
Yeah, take it a step at a time, but obviously a lot of critical moments throughout the next few days. Esme, as always, thank you so much for talking us through it, and I love that analogy of spending time in a caravan, because ultimately, yeah, that's a pretty tight, pretty close. You get to know your team very well, don't you? Esme Stallard, thank you so much.